All right, so this is the dreaded troubleshooting that I really don't look forward to in any puppet. We have to fix a lot of problems that I didn't foresee when designing the initial rig. I've decided to keep a lot of this stuff in here because I think it could be helpful to see these mistakes in action so that when you're planning your own rigs and puppets, you maybe think of this beforehand. I know I've learned a lot from dealing with this setup, and maybe it'll help you too. I can promise you in the next lesson, we'll be doing some actual rigging with Duik tools. So we'll be applying some inverse kinematics and getting the character moving and finally getting to some of the fun stuff. But until then, if you're willing, we can slog through all of these little problems that have arisen in this 3/4 rig. So let's get to it. Okay, so we've got one more thing to really do before we can start building this character together and putting some controls in, and that is going through the last of all the pieces and positioning the anchor points. I think also we're going to have some work to do with the rocket straps. I think they're going to have to be 2 different layers. Right now they're just one piece, and that's going to be a bit problematic. So I'm going to create a mask here on this, and I want to split it right down the middle and cut it in half. The reason is because I have this neck and I have this shoulder and the collar, and right now this thing's sitting in front of everything. So I'm going to call this rocket straps. We're going to have rocket straps front and back. Call this front, and then we'll just duplicate this. We'll call this back, and then put that one under for now. And for the mask, we're just going to invert it. So we'll do a subtract on this one, and then this back one we'll just leave the same. We'll just pull this down to here. May even need, oh, yeah, now I'm seeing a problem. So I'm starting to see now we are going to need, because of the way things are built, we need a separate collar piece for this back. All right, so we're going to have to do this. And this will have to be done regardless of whether we're using the puppet tool for the future character or not. So what we're going to do is we have this back piece and we have the collar. We need to put this collar in front of this rocket strap. Now, the other thing we could do is mask it off, but that does limit some control that we have to it. You could also create a layer mask piece, but I'm thinking is currently if we go into this body piece, we have this guy sitting right on top. We may have to just turn this one off to avoid duplicating too many layers. Okay, so we're going to go here, and I'm just going to paste this object. And I don't know where it went. No idea. Oh, it's not visible. Grab this object, bring it down there, and I'll drop its opacity down so I can, oh shoot. You know what we should have done is actually leave this on because I want to line them up first. Sorry guys, I should have thought of this. Collar, let's turn this down. Let's line those 2 pieces up. Go back into this layer, turn it off. Then we can close this out. RR segmented. We're going to call this, we have 3Q collar. We're going to call it 3Q collar. 3Q collar back. And let's put this in front of the rocket straps. So as you can see, that's already looking better. Could probably leave this whole thing in there and just parent it to the torso back. Okay, probably will look all right. So let's turn everything off and see how it looks. Or turn the isolation off. So I think that looks okay. I think it's patched up and fixed all right. So now we have the rocket strap divided properly, and then this whole chunk will be covered up by the buckle. Now the straps front and back, I'm just going to parent them to the torso, not torso back, but torso front. And the reason I want to do that is I just want them parented to the foremost object I might be thinking of controlling. So I'll just do torso 1 front. So they're going to be parented to the front one. Torso back is also going to be parented to torso 1 front. So I just want everything to be sort of rooted to one place so it's easy to keep track of. We got a lot of things going on in this puppet. And I'm also going to start looking for things that aren't parented to something, like this neck piece, for instance. Okay, so I'm going to turn this down to quarter. Again, I'm working on my laptop and it's fairly old, so I run out of memory really quickly. Let's just go edit, purge all memory. Great. So now what I want to do is start just parent this neck to torso front. So it's layer 11, 3Q torso front. There we are. And sweater is parented to layer 11. You can just see the layer numbers here as well. Collar back is parented to torso back, understandably, which is fine. Rocket straps, they're okay. Now we have the torso 1 back. Now torso 2 is the bottom piece. So I want to make sure that torso front, which is currently parented to no one, parents to the torso 2 piece. Even though that is technically counterintuitive, it should have been called torso 1, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because it just complicates things. So torso 1 front is going to be parented to torso 2. So now whenever torso 2 is rotated, right here, this whole section will come with. And then when torso 1 is rotated, which we'll isolate later, everyone else will come with it. Now I want to make sure also this little buckle is not parented to anyone. And I think I'll just parent that buckle to one of the belts. Let's find that rocket buckle. There it is. And we'll just parent it to the straps front, which will be fine. So now when this is rotated, everything comes with it. Okay. And then the actual rocket cushion, the padding on the back of the rocket, so we call it rocket cushion. I want to parent that also to, I think I'm going to parent it to torso 1, because when the torso 1 rotates, I want the rocket to come with it because the cushion's mostly sticking to the top, not the bottom of the torso. So, and we'll also attach the rocket to the cushion. Actually, no, because I might shake the rocket around and scale it a bunch and do weird things. So that will also parent to 11. So I want it to be independent of the movements of the cushion. And rocket engines. So we have these other rocket engines. Those are going to parent to the actual rocket. Rocket engine A. Have a look here. Those are the bottom ones. Those are going to parent to the one above it. Depending, I may actually switch that up and just have, because I don't know if I want them to influence each other. We'll figure that out later. Okay, so that one's all parented, I think. So we still have one here that's not parented, and this is one of the hands, and that should be parented to the actual arm right. All right, so arm 2. So let's parent that to arm 2, arm right 2. Great, and let's keep looking. We've got leg right 1 not parented to anyone. That should be parented to the pelvis, 3/4 pelvis. There we go. And so we'll keep going up, looking for nuns. Wherever it says none, we want to check that out. Pelvis we're going to leave for now because we need to just define what our center is. And I'm thinking the belt will be the center. So maybe actually let's parent the pelvis to the belt. So when the belt rotates, everything comes with it, but then you can rotate the pelvis independently so that you can move it isolated of the actual belt itself. And then we'll parent the torso skirt to the belt. And then torso 2, which is our bottom torso piece here, will parent to torso skirt. So what that allows us to do is create a nice rotation like that. So we get this nice movement. So that works out good. Let's go see what else we have here. So boot left, boot, okay, and the left leg. I want to make sure. Okay, we're not doing leg yet. Where is the left leg? That's the arm. Boots on top. So this boot does not need to be above the actual torso skirt and the belt. So I want to keep all that together. Whoops. Deselect that. I want to keep the leg and the boots together. There's no need for them to be split up like that. And make sure that leg 1 is parented to the hips again. Or sorry, to the pelvis. So now when the pelvis is moved, both of the legs will go with them. Now we're going to need to do some work on these legs, not this back one, but I think it's this one here, as this is not acceptable what's happening right here. So we need to fix that. And we might have to go back into the original file to fix that. There may be another way around it. So we can probably fix it in After Effects too. That's an option. So we'll just look at that in one of the videos. Let's go up here. Obviously, you know what? You can't plan for everything. You know, you're kind of building these things in your head as you're like I'm building them in my head as I'm drawing, and I can't think of everything. And then when I start playing with it, I might find problems, which is why it's important to understand the animation process when you are building puppets for people, because you really want to try to limit the number of problems like this you'll run into. Because the more problems like this, the more work it is for the animators and for other people to have to go in there and fix up what you missed. Okay, so all our parenting for this 3/4 puppet is done. Pretty sure it's all finished. Just going to scroll through and make sure nobody has a none except the belt, because the belt is operating as our center. What I might actually do is actually call it 3Q belt and then center. And that just makes it a little easier to know that this is a primary piece. And just make sure that we have no more nuns in there. We probably will when we hit the side, but that's okay. We're not worried about the side right now. Let's just have a look too. I think that looks all right. Now this strap could either be above or below this collar piece. So if we want this strap to sit above that collar piece, what we would need to do, I almost think we should. Let's go find that strap front. So we're looking for rocket strap front. And we need to grab the buckle and we need to put it up there. And I actually think that looks a little better like that. Great. So I think this guy's just about ready. So the next thing we'll need to do is position some of our anchor points of the hands and anything that we haven't created anchor points yet. Like I believe my hips don't have anchor points properly laid out. Neither does these other pieces. So the belt and the other part of the torso. And I think as far as the rocket, I don't think I need anchor points at this time. We can adjust those later. The head, I don't think the head has a proper anchor point yet. So we're going to go through and fix our anchor points. After editing this lesson, I realized that the parenting structure of Rocket Randee might be very confusing. So I just want to do a quick sketch to show you essentially what's going on inside the character. Hopefully it helps. Maybe it'll be just add to the confusion. I hope not. So essentially, Rocket Randee has a number of pieces, even more pieces than normal with this kind of character. We have the head, and then we have his neck, and then we have his upper torso. So this is the upper torso right here. And then we have his lower torso. And then we have like a jacket skirt, which is sort of a stretchy part under his jacket that wraps it around his hips, and that sort of looks like that. We'll just represent it like that. And then there is a belt. So there's a belt structure here. Okay, so there's his belt. And then we have his pelvis. This is the core of his chain here, so the pelvis. Now, the way I have it parented, the structure is the head is parented to the neck. The neck is parented to the upper torso. The upper torso is parented to the lower torso. The lower torso is parented to the shirt skirt. The shirt skirt is parented to the belt. And then the pelvis is parented to the belt. So this belt effectively operates as our center of gravity. So when this object here is grabbed or rotated, everything else will follow. However, if we grab or rotate the shirt skirt or the lower torso, anything up this chain will follow that and everything else will stay. So what this allows us to do is create movement in Rocket Randee's pelvis, which doesn't affect everything above him, and also allows us to rotate and move anything up his torso without affecting his pelvis. But this belt ultimately drives the center of gravity. So when we actually start dragging him around to fly and everything like that, we'll be controlling it from this center here. After that, we actually have his arms and his legs, and it's pretty straightforward. So his arms, we have his upper arm, his forearms, and his hands. And his hand is parented to his forearm. His forearm is parented to his upper arm, and then his upper arm is just parented to his upper torso. Same thing goes with the other arm, and the legs are very similar. Let's just extend this. Rocket Randee's legs are pretty straightforward, pretty much the same thing, except we have a few extra pieces when dealing with his actual boots, because we have his toe. So there's the toe of the boot, and then we have the heel of the boot, includes the rest of the foot, and then we have the leg of the boot. So there's the leg of the boot, which I'm just moving over here, and then we have the actual calf or the lower part of the leg, and then we have the upper part of the leg, like the femur. So the way this works is that the toe is parented to the foot and heel, and then the foot and heel is actually parented to the calf and the lower part of the leg here. And the top of the boot is also parented to the lower part of the leg. The reason we did this is so that when the boot moves, the bottom of the boot moves, this upper part of the boot doesn't drag with it. They're just both attached to the lower part of the leg here. And then the lower part of the leg is obviously attached to the upper part of the leg. And then this leg is parented to the pelvis. As we rotate the femur or the upper part of the leg, everything else goes with it and it moves down the chain. Now, where things got a little complicated was with the rocket straps. And with that, I ended up having to cut up the drawing into 3 different pieces. There was that fourth piece, but I just included it in the right-hand strap there. So the straps have 3 different pieces, and the reason they're 3 different pieces is because I want to be able to control them individually. Each one of these pieces, every rocket strap and the buckle in the middle, are parented to the upper torso. This was done so that they could be controlled independently of one another. The cushion that the rocket straps are connected to is also parented to the upper torso. And finally, the actual rocket itself is parented to the upper torso as well. Originally, I was thinking of parenting the rocket to the actual cushion because that's how they're attached technically. But what happens is if I want to animate the cushion squishing because of the pressure the rocket pack's putting on it, that change in scale will automatically affect the rocket as well. So they'll look like they're made of the same material and that they're ultimately attached when they're not. What I want to be able to do is squash and stretch the cushion because it's a more squishy material and not affect the rocket so that they move independently of one another. And the same thing goes with the rocket. When it's filling up with energy and blasting off, I don't want it to have a direct influence, one-to-one influence on the cushion. I want the cushion to react to the pressure of the rocket, not to be connected to one another. So again, it's important that they're not related one-to-one. There were some additional pieces for the three-quarter character, such as the additional collars, and those are all parented to the upper torso as well. And the only reason it'd be parented to anything else is if I needed an object to move them. So if there was a button on the collar, for instance, that button would be parented to the collar, and then the collar would be parented to the torso. So I hope that helps clarify the seemingly complex parenting structure of Rocket Randee. It's actually pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. All right, so back to positioning anchor points and other troubleshooting madness.
Let's set up these anchor points. I'm going to do this for each limb, each piece. I'm just going to set this here. I'm not going to worry too much about going transparent for these. I'll just make sure they look okay. I pretty well know where my anchor points need to be. I've already positioned everything. There we go. That looks pretty good. And what else? We have the rocket, the hips. Now this part, actually, we'll do some transparencies on here. We have the pelvis. We'll grab the torso at the torso 2 and the torso skirt. I'm going to put the transparency down to 50 on those. And we'll go here and we can see a little bit better what's going on. Go ahead and check that one. Let's go to the belt center. Should be yellow. There it is. 50% on that one too. Okay. All right. And maybe what we should do is isolate these guys so they're all that we can see for now. All right. And what I want to do here is create a nice chain that will rotate well side of itself. So when these hips rotate, I want them to rotate from the center of this and also like not show that the belt exists under there as well. Keep that away as long as possible, which is working there. And let's go here. We'll do the belt center. I think the belt center is fine where it is. Maybe I'll just center it a little bit more to the whole character. The torso skirt, let's try that. Let's try moving it. Okay, and I guess we need to move the bottom guy. I think that's pretty good. possibly bring this anchor point a little lower, really to taste. And there's nothing that is going to help you understand that better than just doing it. So unfortunately, a lot of experimentation will have to happen here. I think that looks okay. It could potentially be... actually, I don't know. I'm going to try a few different spots just to be... I don't know if I like it more there or if I like it more down here. Look. This definitely travels more. Reveals more of the belt. I'm gonna take the best of both. Let's grab that there and grab the right one, the torso skirt. Put it in the middle, halfway between them both, pretty much where it already was. I think that's the best of the two options for now. Again, you can always move this. The only time I wouldn't recommend moving this is if you've already done a whole bunch of animation. That is definitely not the best time to be moving anchor points because, well, it's actually not so bad if you've only done rotation. If you've only done rotations, moving anchor points aren't a problem. If you've done positional animation and you move an anchor point, it actually adjusts the position to accommodate the anchor point shift, so then you have to reanimate all the position points. Now, I think the rocket's engine is good the way it is. I have to figure out how we're going to deal with the actual straps here. I'm thinking of splitting the straps up. So we've already split the buckles and the straps, like we have the front and the back strap. But what we also have here is we have the other strap, which is the very front strap. So we have this front strap. I'm actually thinking of splitting this up one more time. So let's duplicate this layer. And this will be called strap front 01 and then strap front 02. 01, I want to be this vertical strap. So let's turn this off. We'll go into here and we'll get rid of another part of this strap. We'll come in here and just pull off this side right here. There we go. And we'll go mask. Subtract that one. So now we're getting rid of that one. And actually, I may actually just come in and eliminate this whole chunk like that. We need to go like that. Maybe then we'll add another point there. Put it like that. And come down. Okay, so that'll be our chest strap. And then we're going to have a waist strap. So that'll be number 2. Turn that one on. And let's subtract away. I'll get rid of the, we don't want plus, we want the pen tool. And we'll get rid of everything above. And come in right there. That'll all be removed. Press M. We want to subtract here. There we go. Okay. Now, let's just have a look here. Let's just double check, make sure we got everything nicely. Could feather that. Could probably afford to feather that a little bit. Don't worry about it right now. We'll see how it works. I think the buckle should hide mostly everything. With the strap front, number 2, which is actually the waist. So actually, let's name this from number 2 to waist, and shoulder. Okay. So this one, I want to put the pivot down here. I'm going to just put both pivots at the center of this thing, roughly. So now, when I rotate this object, I don't want to rotate. And actually, this means the buckle itself is going to have to be parented to something else. So we'll parent the buckle to the actual upper torso, maybe. So let's find torso 1 back, torso 1 front. There we go. Now, let's actually find this torso 1 front. Should be, there we go, 1 back. Okay, so what should happen when we rotate that is everything should go with it. And it's good we're doing this because I'm actually missing a piece. that collar in the front isn't coming along. So let's find that guy. Doesn't have a parent. One doesn't have a parent, or is parented to the wrong thing. Collar. Okay, so this should not be parented to 21. It should be parented to torso 1 front. Okay, do this again. See, make sure. Now, you know what? Now that I'm in this character and I can see the buckle and everything, I'm not really liking where the torso is rotating from. I don't find it's very believable. So I actually want to change this to more around here somewhere. Let's try rotating that. That's not really working for me either. Okay, I'm going to try to figure out how to do this rotation of this belt, because right now I'm not really liking what's happening. Not really working for me. I think I want to put that buckle and pair it to definitely to the upper torso, so when it rotates, that buckle goes with it. Let's do a bit. Actually, we may be able to fix this through positioning of the anchor point, which is a fairly powerful tool in its own right. That's a little better. The only thing I don't like is when it comes back, we're seeing this chunk of clothing, but maybe doesn't work. The nice thing is you really effectively hide the fact that there's a seam breaking there. That works pretty good. Okay, that's a little better. And this is a cutout puppet. It's naturally going to be a little bit stiff. If you were willing to use a little bit of coding, what you could do is actually create a null object that was the driver for the rotation, and then each one of these would rotate at slightly different speeds, creating a more convincing rotation. But I want to do one here without any code at all. So as a viewer, you can really work without coding this character and have something quite rewarding very quickly. And then the other version of the character, we can start getting into some more coding aspects. But I'd say, you know what? I say that's working pretty good. Okay, so let's leave it at that. That rotation's done. So we've done the hips, we've done the rest of the body. We need to do the head now. Go to the head. And with the head, I just want to rotate at where the actual base of the neck would be, which is usually right under the ears. I think that's working pretty good there. Great. Actually, there is one more thing we need to do really quickly before moving too far along, is dealing with these leg pieces, which are kind of deforming weirdly. Like for his butt here, it's making his butt do really strange things. So I think I might have to bring this up a little bit and try rotating it that way. I just have to be really careful because I want to be able to bring that leg up fairly high. Now, the difficulty with a segmented puppet, or even any kind of puppet actually, is in reality, this leg sits under the belt until about this point, and then all of a sudden the leg should be on top of the belt. So that is something to consider down the road. Once you make your character three-dimensional, you can animate in 3 dimensions and jump pieces around, but you have to make sure they're built for it. So my one problem with this character is I think the joint should be rotating around here so that we don't, like, the crotch isn't exposed so much. But the problem is what's happening up here. I'm going to try to find a bit of a sweet point where I get the best of both. I mean, I think that's working pretty well, but I am getting a little bit of a weird edge over here. So I can fix that in a couple ways, of either by masking it off, which is probably the best way to start doing that. Let's just move that leg and see how it feels. It still feels like it's sinking back too much. So let's go. Why? I'm going to zoom in. Let's try over here. No, that's not good. Maybe up here. That's a little better. Yeah, that's better. Unfortunately, though, not liking what's happening there because there's nothing underneath, which I may need to fix. But that's working a lot better. A lot more natural feeling. Okay. So there, and then let's try this guy. Now this one I'm a little more worried about because because of mostly of this, which I mean, it's very rare the legs would go this far back, but this is fine. But back here is a problem. So this part I need to mask off for sure. But let's focus on this leg really quickly. There's nothing here. So I'm going to take a look at this actual pelvis piece. I want to see if there's anything we can do to fatten up that pelvis so that I can actually use it so that it covers everything. Isolate the pelvis. Maybe some of the other pieces here. Okay. What I could do, one of the pelvis, and maybe let's remove the belt section. Because ultimately I drew this all as one piece thinking that it would all work together. And in the end, it did not all work together. So I ended up having to separate them. Mask, subtract. Okay. And we'll just try this for now. See if this actually works. I'm going to try to make the pelvis bigger without all the extra stuff. Now, the other thing I want to do is round off this corner that's going into the paper so that the paper has more of a natural fall off. This one, I'm going to have to do the same thing. So this piece will have to come up. And I could always just add, maybe, you know what I'll do? I'm just going to add another one. Let's add another point. There we go. Grab this one, bring it down. This one will go right to the edge. And then it'll sort of be its own little piece. Okay, so now with the pelvis, possibly scale this up. Okay, and then scale it down. We don't have to draw anything. I really want to avoid having to draw new pieces. I just want to see what happens when I rotate it. So when I rotate it too much, I'll break it, but actually, if I scale it up more, and then change the anchor point up, but continue to rotate from the same place, I do have more freedom. I won't be rotating these hips that much because I can rotate the hips, but then also rotate the belt on top of it. Okay, so let's put this to 0. Let's see what happens. There's a lot of cheats in this character. I feel like I've done a bit of a sloppy design here, but okay, so that's fine there. That's fine there. That works pretty well. Okay. And let's see how the hips move when I rotate the pelvis. Yeah, you know, we're not even seeing that anyway because the legs are covering most of it, which is a positive. Okay, so the only thing I want to fix is this big chunk that sticks out on the leg. So let's go to leg 1. There's this huge area sticking up here. I just want to mask that off. And I want to try to do it as gradually as possible. Make it look nice and clean. Make it look intentional. If it's not really working, there may be the need to actually go in there and paint some new lines. I'm hoping I don't have to do that, because that just complicates things. But if we have to, you have to. Okay, so look. That's not so bad. Might want to bring this in just a little more. There we go. And one thing you can do is you actually could animate these limbs in different positions and then just watch them go through their motions. Because the nice thing is you know that when it's reset, it has to be at 0, and that's back to its original position, because everything's sort of at 0 right now, which is, you know, you kind of want to work with your puppets that way. Now, this leg could probably do to come in a little bit, a little too far out. Rotate this again. Now, this part needs to go, so once again, I'll click on this. And let's just get a mask in there. Again, want to try to be as gradual as possible. Maintain the roundness. There we go. And don't want to like cut off any weird things. So I'm gonna add a point in here. And don't want to round like that. I'm gonna grab this little invert vertex tool. And there we go. And then we'll just invert that mask. Subtract. Okay, let's go back to the character to close that down. And see how that limb is rotating. I mean, it already looks a lot better. I don't mind a little bit, but we can adjust this. Bring this down a little further. And why not, right? There. Great. I think we've solved some pretty major problems there. Great. 0. This character is very close to being ready for rigging. So I guess what we could do is you could rig this guy first and then move to the other character so that you're not watching the same thing twice, which is essentially we're going to just do the same thing all over again with the other character without any of the other detailing issues that we had. Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll position all the pieces, get this character parented up the way we need it to be, and then what we'll do is I'll just overview what I did.
In the next lesson, I'll go through the process of downloading and installing Duik tools, and then we'll get it up and running on After Effects and start applying it to the puppet so we can start using some of the inverse kinematic features. There's a little bit more touching up to be done on the actual setup, but nothing like the last few lessons. So I think it should be pretty fun and maybe a lot more applicable to any of your current projects that you guys are working on. If you like what e.d.Films is doing and want to stay up to date on the latest developments and tutorials, please show your support by liking us on Facebook.